It started with a smell, not a someone left food out smell, a what died here under a heat lamp kind of smell. I noticed it after a week of rain, pooling around the corner of my backyard where the grass had turned yellow and mushy. At first, I figured it was runoff or a dead raccoon. I even brought out my dog to sniff around, but he refused to go near it. That's when I knew something was really wrong. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. So I did what any adult with an HOA problem does. I called a plumber before I called a lawyer. And this guy was good. Had one of those fiber optic camera snakes and a serious hatred for anything involving non-permitted plumbing. After digging around and running the camera through a suspicious-looking drainage line I'd never noticed before, he hit gold, or rather hit gray water. Laundry waste, kitchen runoff, and possibly worse, all draining straight from Karen's house into mine. Turns out years ago, Karen had some shady contractor reroute her gray water line. Back then, that back corner of my yard technically belonged to the HOA, a sort of leftover strip between properties nobody maintained. When the HOA sold that land to me in a silent boundary adjustment 2 years ago, they never disclosed there was a pipe running through it. Why would they? The pipe wasn't on any public permit. And Karen? Oh, she knew. She even bragged once about how her laundry water just disappears downhill like magic. Yeah, magic. Into my yard. When I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. "It's just water," she said, holding a glass of wine at her door like some suburban queen. "You should be thankful it helps with your grass." My grass was dead. My dog had been vomiting for a week. I had sludge crawling up the side of my raised garden bed. "Call the HOA," she added before slamming the door in my face. And so I did. And they laughed, said the line was probably a shared drain, and even suggested I cover it with mulch. One board member actually said, "It's not like it's raw sewage." Not yet, I thought. That was the moment I stopped trying to reason and started taking notes. Dates, photos, the video feed from the plumber's camera. Oh yeah, if they wanted to treat me like the village idiot, they'd better prepare, because I was done waiting for the smell to go away. I was planning to return it. First thing I did was post a sign in my front yard. Caution. Karen's gray water drain zone, contaminated area, avoid contact. In all caps, bold red. Added a QR code linking to a Google Drive folder with every photo, plumber report, and time-stamped sludge puddle I had. Passive-aggressive? Maybe. But when HOA injustice meets literal waste runoff, subtlety isn't the strategy. It's public relations warfare. By the next morning, 3 neighbors had knocked on my door asking if it was real. Oh, it was real. One mom said her kid had come home smelling like dishwater swamp after cutting across my lawn. Another mentioned her dog rolling in the same spot. "I thought it was just fertilizer," she muttered, horrified. "Nope," I replied. "It's Karen's rinse cycle." I filed a second complaint to the HOA, this time with proof. They replied with a printed letter shoved into my mailbox that began with "Dear Homeowner" and ended with "Please refrain from inflammatory signage." No mention of the pipe. No acknowledgement of the inspection report. Just classic HOA misdirection. Make the whistleblower the problem and protect Queen Karen at all costs. So I took it up a notch, got a professional banner made and hung it on my fence. "Washing machine water from 103A Karen's house flows here. HOA approved." Neighbors started slowing down to read it. Some took pictures. Karen, of course, lost it. Marched up my driveway with 2 HOA board members in tow, waving papers and trying to look important. "You're violating community aesthetic standards," she barked. I pointed to the wet, reeking corner of my yard and asked, "Is that part of the aesthetic too?" They threatened fines. I told them I'd sue. I offered to send the city a copy of the unpermitted pipe routing. That shut them up fast. But Karen, she doubled down. "You can't prove that water's from my house. You're just trying to cause drama." Oh, but I could prove it. And I wasn't done. Because while she was flapping her lips, I was talking to a stormwater engineer who'd done compliance work for the city. He took one look at my footage and said, "Want me to show you how to redirect the line back uphill with a sump pump and gravity trick? Could be fun." "Fun," I said, grinning, "is exactly what I'm aiming for." The engineer was a quiet guy with a dry sense of humor, which made him the perfect accomplice. He surveyed the slope of my yard, checked the output from Karen's waistline, then walked the path of the old drainage pipe with a little wheel measurer. This line's just gravity fed, he said, tapping the PVC. They dump the outflow here because your land's the lowest point, cheaper than rerouting it properly. Cheaper. That one word explained it all. Karen's laziness, the HOA's denial, the years of sludge secretly sliding downhill while I paid full dues like a good little member of the community. Well, not anymore. He pulled out a sketch pad. You want legal? We'll stay on your property. No tampering, but we can set up a redirection unit that feeds back toward the border of her lot. Like, push it back where it came from? I asked. Exactly. Sump pump, small tank, timer switch, totally within your rights. And if you want to be creative, we can set the flow to trigger during prime hours. Oh, I said. I want to be very creative. The next week, I had contractors in and out of my backyard. I told the HOA I was doing landscape work. Technically true. The system we installed was beautiful. Pump buried clean, disguised as a garden box, pipes painted to blend in, output directed neatly into a rock bed, just uphill of Karen's precious rose garden. I even added a moisture sensor so it'd activate whenever she started up her washer or dishwasher. Meanwhile, I kept feeding the story online. The QR code from my yard sign started circulating on Nextdoor. Comments like, typical HOA cover-up and Karen strikes again, started popping up. She didn't know it yet, but her once pristine social standing was now held together with soggy duct tape and denial. The final piece was scheduling the activation. I chose Saturday morning. Why? Because that's when Karen always hosts her Coffee and Lawns HOA brunch. Folding chairs, muffin fake smiles, and gossip. And according to my engineer's little timer, that would perfectly align with the end of her laundry cycle. As I stood on my back porch that morning, garden hose in hand and phone ready to record, I saw the first trickle emerge from beneath the rocks. Then a warm, slow surge of gray water began creeping downhill, but not into my yard this time. It slithered across her grass, sank into her flower beds, pooled right under the brunch tent. And Karen? She hadn't noticed yet. At first, the brunch looked like a success. Karen was glowing in her sun hat, pouring lukewarm coffee into tiny floral cups and complimenting everyone's hedges like she hadn't been draining filth into my yard for years. The HOA board sat in a smug little circle, nibbling dry muffins and gossiping about rule enforcement. Meanwhile, just 20 feet away, her own waste was seeping back into her rose garden, slow and steady, just like I planned. Then came the smell. You'd think gray water wouldn't reek too badly, but when it's been sitting in a pump tank for days, mixed with detergent, food bits, and a week's worth of her dishwasher rinse, it's enough to turn a brunch into a barf fest. A couple of guests sniffed the air, looked puzzled. One actually leaned down and touched the grass. His fingers came up coated in a thin, greasy sheen, and then someone shrieked. Karen turned, saw the brownish puddle creeping toward her croissants, and lost it. "Who did this?" she screamed, her voice cracking like her HOA-approved bird bath. "This is vandalism." I stepped out from my porch, raised my phone, and gave her a cheerful wave. "Hi, Karen. You left your pipe open again. Thought I'd send it back to you. Saves me the cleanup." I turned to the guests. "By the way, this gray water's been flowing into my yard for 2 years. Ask your queen here about the unpermitted drain line." One of the board members tried to cover his nose while muttering something about calling security. I just held up the plumber's report and yelled, "Page 2 confirms the origin. Karen's house. No easement. No permit. Pure HOA hypocrisy." Someone else was filming. A neighbor whispered, "Is this going on YouTube?" Another said, "This explains why my dog got sick after running in your yard." Karen tried to rally the guests, but they were already backing away from the stink. One tripped over a lawn chair. Someone spilled coffee all over her roses. I watched with satisfaction as the brunch turned into a stampede. Chairs crashing, muffins flying, HOA egos crumbling like dollar store napkins. The HOA sent me a formal notice that night demanding I remove the retaliatory plumbing system. I replied with a scanned copy of the city's drainage code and one sentence: "All water redirected on my land, your move." The HOA backed off. Karen went silent, and her roses, let's just say, no amount of Miracle Grow could save them now. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think Karen got what she deserved? Comment below.